Good. Hello, folks. How was your night last night? I can see a lot of audiences here, so maybe not so much party animals, but I heard it was a good party. I'm Edi, and today I'm going to talk a bit about Sharding the Shard Labs, what it is about, how basically can we slay the Moloch? Did we manage to do that or not? So that will be the topic of the talk. So let's start. I'm Edi, I'm CEO of Shard Labs, ex-Ethereum Foundation, worked as a part of a Solidity team. I consider myself a scaling maximalist. How do we basically reach the world with blockchains, and not what we talk about, but their use cases and so on, and basically user experience first approach to blockchains. How can we improve the user experience of a normal user to make it even better? That's one of my drivers, basically what drives me. Shard Labs on itself is basically, we like to call ourselves new generation of blockchain architects. Why? Because we like to try to take it from another angle. 2017, MetaMask was the standard, and when you basically talked about something else, like Near's wallet, which has recovery with SMS, email, and so on, people will look like it's a corporate bullshit. It will never work in blockchain. It's not decentralized, and so on. But stuff changes. And we are trying to challenge basically the way of thinking that we have today and try improving that. And that's basically one of the stuff that we do in short. So we are going to talk a bit about DAOs, touch on the old ways of working and what is human sharding, as we like to call it, and what the future holds and stuff like that. Let's start. So how many of you know here what DAO is? Hopefully a lot. OK. So in a sense, decentralized autonomous organizations are considered to be flat. So everybody has a share of voting, has a share of decision-making, and so on. It's a good on one side, democratized, you have direct impact and stuff like that. But on the other hand, how do we scale that? And basically, this is one of the questions we have to ask ourselves. The good side also does is that all activity is public and transparent and so on. But disadvantages of that is that malicious actors can attack this and can utilize this for themselves. How do we make responsibility management? Who is responsible for what? Who decides that? What if we have another actor who is not so open to that? Where do we go with that? Well, what usually happens with some of the protocols, we have so-called benevolent dictators, which come into power not by their own wanting or meaning that, but by necessity. And they are the drivers, they are the strategists that drive basically the ecosystem. We have a positive example of a DAO organization which works in production. For example, with Yearn, I think there are over 40 people now. It's quite hard, and talking to them, how it works and so on, it takes a lot of effort, but it's possible. On the other hand, we had a Sushi, which went through a bunch of stuff and now is at where it is, and it kind of went through hostile takeover and so on because of this flat and open governance, and everybody can participate. They have tokens and so on, so it's not a clear cut. Still, we definitely consider that DAOs are the future and the way to go, and we try to model ourselves towards that. How do we move there? So back a bit about Shard, we started at EF, as I mentioned, as a team of 3 at Ethereum Foundation. We're building something what's called Sourcify, and it was really easy because 3 of us knew everything about that product. So we built everything together, each of us could fit in, jump in, and so on. But what happens when that scales? How do we, move that? And our answers are shards, or human shards. Currently, Shard Labs consists of 3 distinct shards. One of them is DeFi, basically, EVM shard. For example, one of the things we built there is Lido on Polygon, which is liquid staking of Matic. So how many of you have heard for that? Liquid staking of Matic. Awesome, sounds good. Yeah, good audience. And then we have a Near Balkan hub, which is basically one of the local hub for the Balkan region, where we try to do a lot of stuff. From innovation lab, building new products and so on, to educating people, organizing meetups, hackathons, partnering with a conference like BlockSplit, trying to get people into the Web3 space. Then we have a space shard, which is ZK team focused currently on Starknet, And we are trying to aggregate the knowledge here. So in each of these shards, there is a domain that is specific to that. Why is that? 2017, space was quite simple. So you had like Ethereum, mainnet, and so on. All that happened, basically mostly happened on mainnet. Like sure, you had Bitcoin, but you know, who managed to build something on Bitcoin? I didn't, so you know. The whole point basically of human sharding is that we have multiple teams with different focus of vision. So what is shard? What's shard identity? Do I consider myself part of a Shard Labs, Space Shard, Near Balkan Hub, or Lido on Polygon? How do people consider themselves? Then you have another complexity of operations, marketing, business, legal for all these department shards. Do we make them self-sustaining? Do they run on their own? Or do we share the resources? Well, if we share the resources, how do we then prioritize? Who is a benevolent dictator? Well, usually me, but you know, that's also one of the downsides of this. And there is one crucial point to all of this: information flow. We work as a remote-first company, which means basically people are all over, mostly like in European time zones, plus minus 3 hours. And there is always a complexity, in information flow and communication in a remote environment. First, you have to enable people to think, be self-sustaining, and so on, but still not push too much information to them because you have a serious issue of information overload. And, you know, it's one of the challenges. Well, you know, usual stuff. You know, as it scales, it gets even more problems. So what's our solution? Ideal scenario, we have each of the shards has its complete set of resources and people from business, marketing, to technical, and so on. But this is quite expensive, and it's hard to source the people. How do we source them? How do we, you know, create these people? Like Web3 is highly competitive space. Well, we have to educate them. And that's one of the things in our visions and things that we are doing. People in their uniqueness are what basically drives it. Like a lot of different people with their kind of specific knowledge is what makes one organization thrive. If you have people who think the same, well, you know, just have copies yourself and you don't have a redundancy mechanism, you know, to prevent benevolent dictators going in the wrong direction. And that's basically what we are trying to do. Just in short, just wanted to ask you, in what kind of organizational issues you usually encounter? So, or are you working in small teams like a couple of people? So do you usually know all the stuff that is going on? Or have you reached the point where you have sharded responsibilities, like that are distinct, like operations, like tech, like legal, and you don't care about the others? How do you prevent issue when you have that kind of organization? Do you have redundancy in the teams? And how big team has to be for that? I will really leave that question to think about. How do we move from currently where we are at to flat organization to DAOs? And can DAOs scale? I hope so. We didn't slay the Moloch, but we are trying to. Information is crucial to get to the teams. And hopefully, if you basically have ideas how to do this, we are definitely open and we are hiring. So join us. You know, there is a lot of sharding to do. That's it. Thank you, guys. Does anybody have any questions? Did anybody manage to slay the Moloch or not? I didn't ask if everybody knew what Moloch is, but yeah, maybe that's one of the things. So this is kind of master, you know, the coordination master that we are all trying to solve. Thank you, guys.